Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this beautiful first day of summer. It is going to be a great day today. We've got, of course, Frank Duffy lined up here with us live from Omaha, talking about the College World Series. And what a game last night. Happiness and joy from Frank Duffy. Tears of sadness and melancholy from Audrey and the Vol Nation. But look, we got the SEC still alive. Frank Duffy up there, Bingo 1. Got a great show in store for you today. We will be joined also by Coach Butch Thompson. He's going to come on with us here in a few minutes and try to break it down as only a coach can. The middle part of the World Series here. This is a beautiful celebration. It's baseball Mardi Gras, Frank, is what it is. They ought to have parades in the street and crews of people dressed up in baseball stuff. Second hour.
If they did, Rob, I know who the king would be. It would be that incredible pitcher Ackenhausen who came out and pitched his first starting game and only held Tennessee to 4 hits, no walks through 7 innings. Incredible. Shut up.
Yeah,
Paul.
it was. And he'd been first start all year, 10 relief efforts during the year, but God, what a game. In hour number 2, Ben Troupe will check in with us, ESPN Coastal down in Savannah, Georgia. And Yancy Porter will give us a Rebel Yell from the Rebel Yell hotline down in Oxford, Mississippi. Frank and everybody, remember, we're here 6 days a week, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 25 shows at least a month, 50 hours a month, 50 hours of content per month. It is the first day of summer. Don't forget that. Don't forget that at all. And we are also, follow us on Twitter, @Sidelines_live, and subscribe to our YouTube TV channel. You can watch us on your TV. You can connect it on Google Smart TV and tell your friends about the show. That's how we grow. Dollar goes a long way. We are here to talk sports with the best and the smartest people out there. That's what we do. Try to break all this stuff down and make some sense out of what is happening. Frank, real quick, Franz Beard, you and Franz Beard are the 2 most interesting men in the world. Franz sent something to us this morning, and it's if you go to GatorbaitMedia.com, he does every day one final pithy thought. And this is something we talked about last week. John Hartwell, our friend, the AD at ULM, sent this to me a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago, about the IRS. But this is something Franz, he put it in perspective. Perhaps this one about the IRS, they're believing that donations to a collective for the purpose of NIL money are not tax deductible. Now, NCAA President Charlie Baker agrees because he sees it as a way to reel in collectives and slow down NIL money that is changing the entire landscape of college sports, but especially football. The NCAA, in its infinite wisdom, is also drawing up a set of rules to more strictly oversee NIL and the collectives. Baker is supportive, of course, he is. The NCAA is desperately trying to regain control over football and sees this as a way to do it. Now, perhaps Charlie Baker didn't get the memo, the one that showed the NCAA always loses in court and never comes up with anything meaningful to advance sports. This legislation will wind up in court, and of course, it will fail. You can also bet the farm that now that the IRS has its hooks into the collectives, it will go on a seek and destroy mission with everything else involved in college sports. Pandora's box has been opened. So here's a prediction for you and everybody listening. Division I college football will secede from the NCAA, form a brand, new organization with a commissioner. Someone like Rick Neuheisel would be great. I've asked him about that. I'm like, all right, Rick, would you do it? And he said, yes, it would be fantastic. Its own set of rules and regulations and salary caps for each conference, since the players are soon to be paid employees. One last thought. Enjoy classic football jerseys while you can, because it won't be long before college football jerseys will resemble European soccer jerseys with all sorts of advertising. Imagine the Chico's bail bonds, Georgia Bulldog. Franz Beard says that, okay? But look, it is what will cause Division I football to secede. They will have to, because the NCAA has once again abdicated responsibility. Remember Dennis Hopper in those commercials. Bad things, man.
It's just on the horizon. Yeah, no doubt.
Man, I mean, but it's the first day of summer. How did you celebrate the summer solstice last night, Frank, or early this morning? How many shots did it take?
Well, I will honestly tell you, when that game was over, I even texted y'all. I walked back to the LSU hotel, which was a Hilton, and we waited for the team to come in. And it was a zoo. I mean, everybody was having a great time. And as I told you, I said that, our pitcher, Ackenhausen, who had that great performance, his family would not let him go upstairs. They were reveling in every second of it. And it was almost like you could see a little league, player who his mom had taken him to 1,000 practices. And his dad had thrown him 1,000 balls in the backyard. And the culmination and the celebration and the cherry on top was that celebration last night at the hotel with everybody come back. That to me was one of the coolest things to watch that. I was there the other night when they came back after beating Tennessee the first time, but with their backs up against the wall and that incredible performance, that was better than 21,000 shots watching the families of those players, and especially that pitcher, that young man, just reveling. In fact, it was funny. I had just gotten a tweet from a buddy of mine that had one of the New Orleans television stations had their big banner was his picture on it, LSU, backs against the wall. And I showed it to her, and you almost could see the tears starting to well in her eyes. That to me was the best celebration of last night, because it really does take us back. Rob, you and I have been talking about this. We've been talking about Tiger Air and, the helmets, and, yes, it enhances performance, but it's a safety issue. And when you're thinking about safety, your kid might be 21 pitching for the Tigers. He might be a 38-year-old center playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But you think of him as a 7-year-old when he's running around in his first, Pop Warner uniform or his first, Little League uniform. And that's what I saw on display last night. And it was marvelous. It was Americana on stage. It looked like a Norman Rockwell painting. That's what it looked like coming out of that stadium.
Yeah, and I saw those pictures you were sending last night. That was so cool. And what gets me, though, is, we were worried about Tennessee. They're pitching really strong. And as the game went on, I told Audrey, said, you get into the 6th and 7th inning, this big guy for Tennessee, for LSU, will probably be taken out. But for Tennessee to do what they did, they were pulling pitchers every 11 pitches there after the 7th inning. Look, they're desperate. This is it. You win, you're alive. If you lose, you're done for the year. They got Tennessee out of character, and LSU took a bet and rolled the dice on the big guy, Ackenhausen. And then they had Chris Farley out there late in the game, or Lumpy Rutherford, whoever that was. Who that big guy owed to the hey, salute to the big guy, man. What that guy was that Meatloaf?
Hey, by the way, I don't think you've ever had a 2-pitcher, 4-hit, no walk shutout and have that much combined weight sitting out on the rubber. All I'm gonna tell you is I don't know what the ladies are doing at the old Broussard Hall at LSU, where all the athletes go to the training table. But if there's not an all-you-can-eat jambalaya bar, they're sneaking it home back to the dorm somehow. But no, it was incredible. Awesome. And you're right. You're right. It was LSU beating Tennessee at Tennessee's game. I mean, look, you go into every game expecting you're going to win, hoping that you're going to win as a fan, as a player, as a coach, administrator. But that was not the way that I thought we would win that ball game. I thought it would be 8-7, 7-5.
Yeah.
Bats come alive late. Somebody comes back on the other one. Man, to shut Tennessee down like that, 5-0. Great to see Dylan Cruz, our all-SEC player.
Yes.
He was having a tough 2 games before this. Came out on fire. And I will tell you, when we were sitting up there going into the 9th, we did not feel comfortable in that 3-run lead. When we got that extra insurance run, felt good, but it didn't feel comfortable. And when Dylan Cruz sent that one over the fence, in the 8th. I mean, that was what we needed.
Well, in a play like that, for him to get a home run after he was 2 for 8 in the first 2 games, I think that takes a lot of pressure. We all know this. If it's sports or it's in business, if you're on a sales call, sales meeting, and you're tight, it shows, and people can pick up on that. And I watched that last night, and I felt like Tennessee. I'm like, they're a damn good team, but LSU right now, when you can go to a guy like Ackenhauser, the big guy, who's had not started before, and he pitches 6 innings of shutout baseball, you're going to win the game. It's going to happen.
And, it was funny. It kind of looked like, where I was sitting, I don't have good seats. I got great seats at LSU. I don't have good seats here. I was out in the outfield. And I was looking. And when I tell you, it looked like to me his velocity actually picked up in the 3rd and 4th inning. So he got, and so what that was confidence, right? The big boy was out there. He was starting to feel it. And at southpaw, when you got a left-hander that's getting a little movement and that acceleration comes up, and they're not expecting that. That was just a hell of a performance. And I ran into Milazzo, the kid that caught. He's not our everyday catcher. He was behind the plate, and he caught a great game. And I ran into him at the hotel, and I told him that. I said, look, as a former catcher who's back there about 12 years, I said, you handled him really well out there. So, and by the way, he was kind of hanging back while Ackenhausen was out there taking the pictures and everything. It's kind of, hey, that's your typical catcher, man. I got to take care of my pitcher, even when he's being mobbed by 9-year-old kids wanting baseballs to be signed at the Hilton.
Yeah.
And by the way, that wasn't the only love that was going on. Every bartender, bar owner, waitress was so happy that LSU gets to stay around for one more day.
Yeah, I could kind of sense that. I said, Audrey, Tennessee will take fans out there. So will Florida. But LSU fans will take more than anybody. Now, Ole Miss last year was incredible, but Ole Miss will because they've come back with 6 national championships. So you do that, people think, we're going to win it all, because it doesn't take but one to make your fan base feel that way.
And let me tell you, Rob, that's a great point for tonight, because don't forget, we go up against Wake Forest. Now, I'm dying to ask Butch, Coach Thompson, when he comes on, I'm dying to ask him a baseball chess question for starting pitchers. We have a unique situation tonight, and then potentially on Monday with Paul Skeen. So I'm going to wait for Coach, and I'm going to ask him this particular question, because you got to win both the games against Wake. So it doesn't matter which one you lose one of them, and you're heading back to Baton Rouge. So it's critical. But if you can win this ball game, and I think I might have a crazy harebrained scheme to see how we might be able to get the most juice out of Skeens that we can. But if we win this ball game and we go for a winner take all in this bracket tomorrow, and again, don't want to count our chickens, but if we can get to that game, those 6 national championships come into play. Because at that point in time, they remember their Wake Forest, and they remember that we're LSU. And that could be very interesting if we get past today.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm texting with Butch Thompson while I'm talking to you. He is going to be on with us. He's out running right now, getting some exercise before he comes on here. But I'm going to tell you what, college baseball is doing us all a lot of favors. But it's growing the fan interest.
Yes.
With about 100 SEC players on opening day Major League Baseball rosters. It's huge. I tell you who we've had on, and I'm going to get Dan Matthews back on again, maybe later this week if he can do it. But I've had Chris Domino on a couple of times. Billy
great
Roberts,
guy.
Yeah, my God. I met him back in December when I was over there going to lunch at 680 with Chuck Oliver. I'm telling you, man, Chris Domino, Nick Cellini, they got a great show. In fact, I was watching an interview last night of those two about 2 months ago with Kirby Smart. And I'm going to tell you what, Domino's a great interviewer. He's like being interviewed by a detective at 3 a.m. on the first 48. Yes. He is incredible. And his baseball knowledge, I mean, getting him on here with you and Butch Thompson, I'm just going to watch, but I'm going to do it.
Chris Domino has one of the best baseball knowledge minds that I've ever come across. And and look, I consider Chris a very, very good friend. I've known Chris for, 15 years since we've been doing, advertising on 680 The Fan. I've known him a long time. Great guy. In fact, I even remember one night, probably about 15 years ago, when he was at a remote at Hudson Grill in Alpharetta, a suburb of Atlanta. And I went up to him, I said, Chris, I'm going to give you a compliment. I go, at interviewing, you're as good as Costas is, and you're as good as Shap was. And I'll tell you what, he was like, he was taking it back. He goes, that's one of the nicest things anybody's ever said to me. I said, I'm not blowing smoke. You're really good. If you ever want to pull up a Chris Domino interview, pull up the interview that he did with Ted Williams about 7 or 8 years before Ted passed away. Because Ted was notoriously hard to get to sit for an interview. And if you got him, it was about 2 minutes of just gruff conversation that was not pleasant for most parties. Domino had him on there. Don't quote me, but I think it was between 27 and 37. Those are the numbers that I remember. He had Ted Williams on it, and Ted was like, "You're good, young man. You know your stuff. You know your stuff." And it was fabulous. And I joked with him. I said, Rob, I write stage plays, and I've got some screenplays that I've written. Us New Orleanians, we just love to tell stories, right?
Renaissance man.
That's right. And so I told him, I said, one of these days, I'm going to write a play about sports talk radio, and it's going to be 3 sports talk stations, one in LA, one in New York, and probably this fictional one probably be in Atlanta just because I know it better and I get more reference. I said, and what the premise is going to be is the name of the play is going to be called Interviewing Koufax, because the hardest interview of all time is Sandy Koufax. He just does not give interviews. He's incredibly private. And it's going to be a comedy about the fact that somebody made a mistake on taking a message, and one of the sports stations thinks that Sandy's trying to get him to give an interview. And it's the 3 sports stations that are going to be climbing all over themselves to try and get this interview. Well, Chris Domino, in my mind, is the fictional character that I'm basing this on because of his vast amount of interviews. Can I tell you, he's got a duffel bag full of mini cassettes with all these incredible interviews he has on him. And my good buddy, Ray Giudice, the attorney who does a lot of advertising with us on 680 The Fan, he and Ray are paisans, and Chris are paisans. So we said, listen, we've got to get your interviews. That's got to make its way to Cooperstown, because that is some incredible auditory. Buck O'Neill from the old Negro Leagues. He's got but one of his best friends was Tony Gwynn. Chris and Tony Gwynn were tight. Every time Tony would come in for a series, he would sit with Chris live on the station, which a player hardly ever does a day before a game, right? So he's fabulous. You're exactly right. He's a great guy, and he knows baseball knowledge. Really knows the pros, but he also knows college as well. But this great thing about having Coach Thompson on here is also you're going to get your mindset from a coach and from somebody that knows baseball from a different angle than what us animals that are sitting out there in the bleachers can see it. So when Coach comes on, right now is where, like, and I know he and Jay are really good buddies. They're real close. The coach makes his pay in game 12 and game 11 of a World Series. This is where your pay comes off. When you're lean on pitching, you've cobbling together a lineup. Your team is about to play its 4th game in 5 days. It's just, this is where the chess player in a coach comes out. Yeah, it's great. You love to hit fungos. Yeah, you get out there and you love to recruit. But it's the moving around of the pieces and setting up your rotation that is so critical at this time of the year.
It is. Well, it's like a surgeon knowing what to do in surgery. Why are some surgeons like Dr. James Andrews sought out by people from all over the world? Let me tell you what, if socialized medicine was the answer, you wouldn't see the waiting room at the Houston Clinic or Andrews Orthopedic packed with people from all over the world. I will never forget one time being in the Houston Clinic when I was having a surgery years ago. There was a girl in there from Sao Paulo, maybe Rio de Janeiro. And I listened to the conversation because she spoke English, talking to the doctor. And they had done 7 surgeries in Brazil with that, back then they're socialized medicine.
Yeah.
And they did them in a lazy boy chair in the waiting room, 7 surgeries. And they did the surgery one time. These people had plenty of money. They rented an apartment for 3 months in Columbus. But, that's the thing. Certain coaches, look at the number of coaches like Jay Johnson, like Butch Thompson, who are these pitching whisperers, whatever you want to call them. But they know what buttons to push and when to push them. And they don't panic. They don't knuckle under to pressure. Anxiety is funny. If you're going to a race, I don't care what sport it is, your anxiety, that 6 inches between the ears, those most important. You're going to use a lot of times. You might be the smallest guys there, and you get there, and all these big guys are there, and it's a race, or whatever sport, canoe race, whatever. And you take off. You just got to get in that zone and do what you do. Chris Domino, I told him we were talking about him right now. He's texting me back. He said, got to watch Frank. Frank, no, you're right, though. Again, the great interviewers, I don't know what it is about people from Brooklyn. Like Chris said, he goes, my dad was a Dodgers fan, the Brooklyn Dodgers. When they left Ebbets Field, they went to Los Angeles. We had no team for 5 years. Yep. And the Mets came here. But you know what's cool about it? And Billy listens, and I've got that 680 app and Southern Sports Today app for Chuck Oliver. I listen to it all the time. And the thing about it is the people that love baseball are the greatest storytellers. And you know what Chris said, he told me this along the line of what you're saying, that duffel bag of all the cassettes of all the great interviews. It's called his bag of souls.
I love it. Yeah, I've heard him say that. That's great. Because many of them have passed. Many of those that he's interviewed have gone on to that diamond in the sky, and that's auditory history, man. And look, and he and I and Ray, we love going. Look, hey, those Italian boys take this Irishman under their wings, and we go eat chicken parm over at the Palm, which is fabulous. They got the best chicken parmesan I've ever had. So we were sitting over there on more than one occasion. I'm not talking about one time. We've said it on multiple times. We have got to get his tapes. And I said the hall really needs to pay you an honorarium for collecting them. This is just not a benevolent donation. I said we got, and Ray and I have even talked. We said, man, we got to do something to broker that data, that stuff that Chris did, is just, it's time. It's history. It's our American pastime, but it's spoken in the words of those who played it. And we've got a lot of footage, and there's a lot of historians out there. But I'm telling you, for the talent of the interviewer, there's no one better than Chris Domino at talking baseball to baseball people. He's phenomenal. He's that good.
Yeah, and when you watch him and Nick Cellini doing the interviews, again, they were talking to Kirby Smart at Buttsmere Heritage Hall, looking out on the indoor practice field, what they call the House of Pain. Billy and Otis Porter Payne. They're so good at it. And Kirby Smart, when you watch him being interviewed, he is so comfortable in what he does and who he is. He ain't faking it, okay? He loves what he does. He loves being the coach of Georgia. He is the son of a high school football coach from Bainbridge, Georgia. They're interviewing him, and there was a funny point in this interview. I found it on YouTube last night. I study interviews of everybody. I study the subjects that we study, just like you and I. We both do this. And I like that commercial. It's up on our website at www.sidelines.live about Tiger Air. And I'm going to have Glenn Rogers one of the coaches at MUS, CBHS's big rival in Memphis. He's going to be on with us Friday morning. I believe today is the funeral of Deion Stutz, the defensive lineman, rising senior at MUS who had committed to Arkansas and died tragically in an accident, I think on his four-wheeler last week down at their farm in Batesville, Mississippi. And it's really torn him apart. And it is I talked to Glenn a couple of days ago, but he will be on with us Friday. And I'm going to get him. We're going to be talking about this and about Tiger Air. It's a game changer. It's a big deal. But you study that interview, and Chris Domino and Nick Cellini are talking to Kirby. And you think these guys are just baseball guys. And they're both they've got on these red 680 quarter zip, pullovers. And he goes, well, you're wearing the right colors. And they're going, no, well, we didn't know that. But Kirby Smart, again, I don't know him. I hadn't interviewed him. I'd sure as hell like to, but they're asking him about the starting quarterback. And he goes, well, what do y'all think? He goes, with all the practices y'all get to go see. He's funny when he does that.
Oh, Kirby's got a little smart aleck in him. There ain't no doubt about it.
He does. And the funny thing was, they just asked him about the starter. He said, I don't think we know. We know about 25% of it. And he said, with all the practice that y'all get to come see, and that's Kirby Smart just being who he is. But that's the funny part about it. There's speculation and all, but let's get down to business. I just was texting Butch Thompson with Yan Cowart, architect there in who, and I'm not sure who the architects, but Yan's with Goodwin Mills and Kaywood. I've known Yan for a while. My dad met him on the architectural board at Auburn because he bought Sam Butner's practice Infinity Architecture years ago. But I'm looking at these architectural renderings of Plainsman Park, Coach Thompson, and I'm to say I'm fired up. You got to be fired up. But before we talk World Series, Frank is live in Omaha aboard Bengal One. Talk about these improvements real quick, and then we got a lot of baseball questions on the phone already.
Good morning, Frank, Rob.
Morning, Coach.
Everybody. Frank, looks like you're having a good time. Some of the photos and
loving it.
Run into a lot of people. Ever since I come on the show, Rob, we've been talking about the expansions to Plainsman Park, and all this landed yesterday, and it's been a lot of feedback and a lot of preparation behind the scenes to get to this point. So looks like we'll start construction here in the middle of July. We have final board approval, and, our donors have stepped up to the plate. Our leadership is in alignment to make some great adjustments here over between now and next season, and then play the season, and then another iteration to finish everything by, 25, 26 complete. So, it's an exciting day for Auburn baseball.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. You know what, Coach, you had said a couple of years ago, your dream would be to have some luxury suites down on the first baseline that people could go into on Tiger Walk football Saturdays. And looking at those architectural renderings, do you have a degree in architecture or design?
No, I realized that we had one of the best real estate propositions on our campus.
Yeah.
And how to fully utilize that, and then thought about not having, premium seating. Plainsman Park was an original ballpark, and when it was built in the mid to late 90s, it was a bell cow. It was like one of the nicest facilities for college baseball, and was kind of thought of around the ranks as that way. And then here comes premium seating, and here comes everybody else over the last 25 years, getting in the game and figuring out the appetite of how things move currently. So, we've been working on this for a few years. It's probably a 5-year deal. And, when John Cohen came in about 6 months ago, I just said the charge was, I know you got to hire a football coach. I know you're in the middle of everything and getting settled, but with your expertise and having been in this league for so long, and us being together for a while, and just having a good feel of building the Dudy Noble field, I'm like, how can we make this better? And I think he did. I think our premium seating from when he onboarded, I think our premium seating is closer to home plate. I think we all know that that's important for digestion for your donors that are paying these premium spots. We'll get a spot right behind a home plate. we'll get a football style 50-yard line type deal up where the press box is, and allow some of that working press box to move down to the first baseline to that sweet club level. So that was the first big improvement. And then we're not leaving our players out. I think that was the biggest piece. We were about to embark on building something really nice, but then maybe when it's complete, you're like, man, we could have done a little bit more. The locker room could be dated at that point, and a couple of things in the office, weight room, stuff like that. So we found a way to stay within the budget that was approved by the board and enhance and make this better. So you feel like that people that invested got the most bang for their buck. So I think we finally got to the point yesterday where, like, this is it. This just checks all the boxes for us. We're not trying to get to 10, 15,000 capacity. We know our identity. We know who we are, and we're trying to enhance and make that the best we can be. And I think that's what this project will pull off for our program.
Yeah. And so many people are asking questions right now about, it's a 3-year in phases. And so that outfield, I get pictures, God, of every game from people that are out there tailgating. Ray Mooring, Pat Cornelius, they're junkies to this stuff. And more, when you're on, it's getting like a football atmosphere, the tailgating and all. And yeah, and what you're doing it with, and Frank's out in Omaha. So, but hats off. And I don't know who the architects are, but I know Yan Cowart's going to be on with us Tuesday talking about the future of college athletics and the arms race for facilities and all like that. And help Coach Thompson. I remember back when I was 12 years old, we were down at the beach one time at Destin, Silver Dunes condos, where that bear came in off the beach last week. I never saw a bear. And I know my parents, and I were down there many times, 2 weeks in the summer. Never saw a bear, but I'll never forget the day my dad flew out of Destin, came back late the next night. And I said, where have you been? He said, well, I've been paying for this trip and your tuition. He'd been in Tuscaloosa to meet with Coach Bryant and Sam Bailey, who kind of really ran the athletic department. Coach Bryant was the AD, but he designed my dad ended up designing the Sam Bailey track and field complex and the tennis complex and a bunch of stuff. And he said, I've always wondered how I got all that work at Alabama, because they don't have an architecture school. Rayburn Construction did everything up there for the Sewell Thomas retrofit. But looking at this as the son of an architect, you are going to have one of the absolute just rock star, the pinnacle. This is so nice. But I love the way you're doing it in phases, because if there's any need to make a change along the way to make it even better, you could go to the donors. Hey, we need a little bit more. But this is Frank. You got to see these renderings.
Oh,
They're
no,
incredible.
I saw it. Maury sent them over, and I looked at it. What I love about it is y'all kept a lot of area, kind of like y'all have down your third base line. So when LSU came in 2 years ago, Dan Matthews and I, who Dan, he's on the show a lot. Dan Matthews and I hung out with all the people, kind of where like the little picnic tables with the kind of umbrellas are down that third base side. So I love the fact that y'all have kept that communal feel with all the added room that you're putting in, because that's what's great about baseball. You've got the ability for the fan bases to come together, and it's not like football. It's a different feel. I mean, you're spirited. You want your team to win, but it's a lot more collegial. And that's what I loved about it. When I saw the renderings, I saw all the kind of the common space area where the fans can mix and mingle and enjoy their hot dogs or whatever. So I think it looks great. I mean, kudos to pulling that off. And I'll tell you, Coach, you asked at the right time, because I can't remember any more popularity for college baseball than the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's still growing. And Frank, I was out Wednesday, Thursday, and I left Friday morning from Omaha. We're just doing my duty with All American Committee. And man, it's hard to stay in the same hotel on the same floor without your ball club. But so I bolted, because there's so much going on: recruiting, summer school, camps. If you're not out there playing, you gotta get back to work. So we'll try to get back. But I'm watching every game. Rob, we're using CDFL. Out of Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. Okay. They built the original Plainsman Park. So, we got less say in the bid process, but I'm sure, a lot of these people bid, and CDFL, the original builders, is part of it. And there's little things. The symmetry of the ballpark looks a little unique, but really how it settles to get into the weeds a little bit more, how much this is thought out. Down the first baseline is at club level, but that creates the shade because the west is behind the stadium. So you'll have a do you want tickets more that will serve in the shade for more of your games? And then, to your point that you just made down the terrace and the up in the parking deck, that's going to be more of a sun field because people have different intakes of how they want to take in a college baseball game. And with the multiple premium spots, you might want a more social deal at the club level that would work on a football game in Tiger Walk. Or, you might want your own space there in that Frank Thomas, the Hall of Fame club, where you got 3,000 square feet. You can watch it on a TV. You can have your meal, but then you can walk out right behind home plate like you're seeing in some of these selections. Some people want to see 97 miles per hour and be the closest person to it of anybody in the stadium. And that's being offered as well. So you got a lot of different places. We went from 4,096 really nice chairback seats to now offering, different experiences. And it's all drink rail, 2 levels of the Monster. I'm so thankful that we didn't leave that out. That was a personal desire, uniqueness to be able to put those seats up there. And we did figure out a way because I think, again, if you have some background in this, anytime you work in elevation, the prices become astronomical when you try to build up on structures like that and elevate off the ground. So, but it worked out, and it's going to be great.
Awesome.
Yeah. You know what? And think about this. You were in Omaha. Frank got out there, a week ago, Wednesday or Thursday, and just watching these games, man. Yeah, it's potentially an 11-day celebration, Mardi Gras of baseball. But the people of Omaha and everything like that. And Frank, you're out there. Once you go to Omaha, you're part of the club. You're part of the family,
hooked.
aren't you?
You're hooked. The love affair that Omaha has for college baseball, the teams, their supporters, they literally adopt you up here. They're the friendliest people in the world. But, the great thing about this is you don't even have to be there for your team. I went and cheered on Tennessee when they played Stanford the other day. And I cheered them on. I was kind of half cheering. I really didn't want to have to see them again with that deep pitching staff. In fact, I even told some guy, buddy, I hope we see y'all not until like 2 years from now when we go back to to Nayland. But it's a fantastic place. If you're listening and you've never been here and your team comes, you have got to come. I mean, Coach, you saw those pictures of all the Auburn guys that I was hanging out with we were up there and just having a blast. And in fact, I joked. I said, "Look, I'm gonna be on with Coach Butch tomorrow." He goes, I said, "You got any messages for him?" He goes, "You just tell him keep doing what he's doing." We love the fact that Auburn baseball is highly competitive. He goes, we came last year when Auburn went to the College World Series. We had so much fun. We came again this year, and he joked with me. He goes, "Y'all better enjoy it because we're gonna be the ones here next year, not y'all."
Well, that's building a tradition of a program. I was watching last night, and right off to right behind home plate, there's a guy in an Auburn shirt, and I'm like, man, that didn't happen before. But I think about LSU, and there's not been a more historic run really than that program, and hadn't been there since 2017. But I know in 19 and last year when we're there, I mean, there is the LSU fans are going to be there. They're going to be cooking. They're going to be taking it in, and I'm kind of proud to see our program doing that because that shows belief in your program. Hey, our team may not be here this year, but buddy, they will be. And whoever's out there wearing an AU for us or an LSU when their team's not there is a belief, and that means they signed up, and made those plans months in advance, believing in their program and their team to be there. And that's pretty neat.
And kept the plans. That's the really cool thing because they're baseball fans, and that's what I love about this. I mean, and look, that's what I was telling Rob yesterday. I said I went to the Tennessee game. I was cheering for Tennessee. I was cheering for the conference, right? I went in there. I was cheering for Florida. I watched them play when they played Oral Roberts. So it's just great baseball out here. It's a great setting. It is. I mean, boom, you come up the next morning, you got another game to go to. I've already been to, I think we're on game 11 that's going to be coming up. I've been to 7 of the games, and it's just been fantastic out here.
Yeah. Well, Coach, and both of y'all are saying is making the plans to go to Omaha and keeping them. That's like the story I read one time in a sales training course about confidence. True confidence is when, hey, we're going fishing for Moby Dick. We're going to stop at Costco and buy extra tartar sauce. That's the kind of confidence I like. And I tell you, Coach,
Rob, confidence is a pitcher who's making his first start that when he gets through the first inning, 1, 2, 3, all of a sudden he picks up 3 miles an hour on his velocity on his fastball. Yeah. Where did that come from? Confidence.
Yeah. I mean, Coach, all right, Coach, got to ask you this one. Kevin O'Sullivan, I'm sure you know him, coaches at Florida. I didn't realize this. You can make 6 trips to the mound to talk to your pitcher. And he made, I think, a 7th the other day, and you have to leave the pitcher out on the mound. Explain to our listeners and viewers and all exactly what happened there. Yeah.
You get so many. And if you walk out there to just try to have a visit and it's exceeded that limit, the pitcher's coming out. Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of gray area. The gray area and confusion is you're in the College World Series. The gray area and confusion is that a catcher can make a visit.
Yeah.
And so you start over the last few years, they started counting it different. But it's a tough one, to Kevin's credit, he took it. We all make mistakes now. We're all human. Yeah. Nobody needs to go start acting like they're not human. But in the moment there, it was a big deal, and it was frustrating. And his team picked him up. He actually had a freshman pitcher pick him up. So it can happen. And if you ever, as a coach, I guess the best thing you can do, and what I often do is I'm walking out there, I got another visit left right before I walk across that white line. Yeah. So, and all that confusion, that's the best thing you can do is just say, hey, I got one more, right? I got another free visit here because they were not prepared to go to the bullpen, of course.
And that's what happened. I think the catcher made that little quick visit out right before. Coach didn't see it, and when Coach came out, you're right. They had to take out their closer, stud, and then this freshman comes in. But here's the worst part, Rob. He had not thrown but maybe 1 or 2 pitches. He got up, threw a couple in the bullpen. He warmed up on the mound of a College World Series game with it in the balance and got out the inning. That's incredible.
I was real curious, but, that was a safety feature there. They didn't allow him to warm up in the bullpen. They did bring him to the game mound like an injury, and they allowed him, to exceed 8 pitches because it took a while for him to warm up. In the old days, that would have been the 8 warm-up pitches and you go. So I did think they did the right thing by giving him some additional pitches because nobody had been up down there in that bullpen throwing to be prepared to come in the ball game. But Frank, I guess the attendance and everything, it still looks like it's growing and getting bigger and bigger to me out there.
There was only one game that I wasn't there that was a sellout. Every other game has been a sellout except for the one that was maybe 90% full. It was a hot afternoon game, so understandable. It was one of the loser games, the first loser game in the other bracket. But other than that, Coach, people are loving it. They're having a blast. I'm happy to report that LSU has shattered the Ole Miss shot record over at Rocco's. We went screen past about 3,000. When the owner of Raising Cane's walks in and throws $30,000 down and buys 6,000 shots, you've done something. That's been. And by the way, the greatest advertising ever purchased for $30,000 because he was all over ESPN. I was like, that's good marketing, Coach. Good.
Very, very good. Coach, I got to ask you, do you know much about and coaches, y'all know it's a fraternity. You know the coach because you worked so hard to get where you are and you've got relationships along the way. Tell us about Wake Forest. We had Josh Graham covers Wake Forest in the ACC from Winston-Salem, WSGS radio on the show with us Saturday, kind of open our eyes. I always believe in going local, eat local, buy local, and get the local beat writers and the sports talk show hosts and all. And he really opened our eyes a lot to Wake Forest. He said, they don't have the fan following that an LSU does or an Auburn does, but it's the few, the proud, and they got a lot of money. But it's the smallest Power 5 school out there. But tell us what you know about Wake Forest and about this Wake Forest LSU matchup as only a coach can see it through a coach's eyes and through that brain of yours for the man from Amory, Coontail, Mississippi. Is that correct, Coontail?
Yeah, you did. You hit the nail on the head. That's for sure. Well, Wake Forest is in the ACC. I will say that first. So, and that's a team that's figured it out. So you play in a great Power 5 conference, the number 2 conference this year in RPI and strength of schedule, et cetera. So it's a good ball club. It's been built for a few years. They started hitting home runs a few years ago. Now they play in a smaller ballpark. So, you have to figure out how to translate that to Omaha, because it can be a left-handed pitcher that can make it happen when that wind starts blowing in for you. It becomes a lower backside type line drive. I remember losing a national championship there in 2013 and to a UCLA team that would just hit and run and get that ball on the ground when we've been hitting home runs all year, and that park kind of swallows it up and it's harder to do consistently. So, but Wake Forest has built an offense. And all these clubs now that are having a ton of success, man, are they older? Some of these teams are older. They're gritty. They don't make mistakes. But, it's sold on the pitching too. And Wake Forest did the pitching lab in connection with their hospital. It brought resources where you have 20 or 30 students that are just involved in figuring this thing out. And so they've built a pitching staff and pitching lab, but it's really the technology and manpower and research. And somehow you get you a good pitching coach. You acquire a little bit of talent here. You allow them to get older, and you figure all those things up. And somebody thinks that they're making pitchers. And you guys mentioned confidence. I think confidence comes from acquiring skill, and I think self-confidence is the number one variable to human performance. And you start figuring all that out, and it's their moment. And they started off good this year, and everybody like, man, is Wake for real, or will they fade out? And buddy, they hadn't faded a lick. You look at like a Tennessee and slow start, and then here they go. And LSU is the best team in America for a long time. And then, they got to reset themselves a little bit there toward the postseason. We're 5-10 the first half. We go 12-3 the second half. You look at that, but Wake Forest has been a consistent wave the entire year and a model of consistency. So it'll be interesting. It looked like that was unique for them playing the first game of the World Series. Like they were not settled, but they won. Florida, we talked about the pitching change the other night. Kind of could have really gotten weird when you take your closer, your best guy out of a ball game, but they won.
Yeah, winning it.
Both of those teams won, and they got to the 2-0 mark now. So it hadn't been perfect, I don't think, for either one of those teams, but they won. And I think that's the powerful piece of them going into this ball game. So, of course, they had the advantage. But what the two lefties did for LSU last night was big, because I thought that Tennessee, as soon as we got in, because we had hosted a regional and Tennessee went to Clemson, and I'm like, how are we going to get past this Southern Miss with them announcing their coach? And we didn't. We got kicked in the teeth. But I was like, I think Tennessee's getting out of the dark horse because of that pitching depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had Beam going last night. They had a proven starter.
Yeah.
And so I tipped my hat even more to LSU, because absolutely did enough offense. Cruz hit a couple of the hardest balls you're going to see hit. The first one hit right into the wind. The one later in the ball game wound up getting out of the park opposite field. But again, that came down to the pitching. And I thought Tennessee was a dark horse in this thing once they got in it. LSU, to me, is the one that can bring the cloud and can bring the resilience, and their people can push, a few great players across the finish line, and they'll fight you. Everybody from Louisiana will fight you to your death. And then I thought the most complete team for me was probably Florida. It didn't, maybe not playing that way all year, but I just the depth and texturing and who a guy can finish, and some talent to start. Sproat and Waldrop got just over a 4 ERA, but we all know they can hook it up and get after you for 7 innings when it matters. So, but I can't bet against LSU because of their resilience. Tennessee's gone because of LSU pulled one out of the hat last night with those two kids throwing amazing. Wake Forest is a pretty complete team. Wake Forest and Florida the most complete. But that LSU deal, if you hook it up with them at the right time, you better put them away.
And Coach,
hey, Frank.
we saved our bullpen. You said that right. We only used 2 pitchers last night, or 2 lefties. Saved the bullpen. And the interesting thing, Coach, which I loved about it, we actually beat Tennessee at their own game because Tennessee's strength is that deep rotation. And coming in last night, I thought that was going to could have been our Achilles heel in that late of again in game 8. And that was the thing that just shocked me, was how we beat them. I wasn't shocked that we beat them. I was shocked how we beat them, and we beat them at their own strength.
Yeah, Coach and Frank, Dan Matthews, 680 The Fan, Southern Sports Today, executive producer, is joining in with us right now. LSU junkie, as he said, avowed Astros fan, LSU guy. But Dan Matthews, you're on with Coach Butch Thompson and another guy Frank Duffy.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. What's going on, Frank? Full disclosure for the audience out there, me and Frank, I think we're kind of the support group for each other last night watching that game. But Coach, it's a privilege to talk with you. Congratulations, too, on the announcement of the improvements to Plainsman Park, too, as well. It looks like that's going to be a real benefit to the program. And, again, congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. We just keep talking about growth. I know Vanderbilt put something out a few weeks ago, and Georgia put out a little bit, and yesterday was our day, and this league just continues to grow. I was talking to Frank, just the College World Series from top to bottom and across the board, and our sport's growing, and we got to keep pushing during the time that you're in growth.
Well, plus you've had to coach with Tim Hudson on a regular basis at times too. So us here in Atlanta want to pass along our apologies for that.
It was amazing. And Tim and Kim, I think you sound like you know them pretty good. I don't think there's any former student athletes that invested more in our program and in Auburn University than those two. So
Huddy's great.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Great people for sure.
You know what I love about this is the fact in Coach Thompson, Dan Matthews and Chuck Oliver, and we just, like I said, we were talking with Chris Domino, talking about him earlier. At 680, you talk about a hub of baseball, Coach Thompson. I know you go up to Atlanta sometimes for the Braves will invite you and the Auburn staff up there. But Frank, and you know this, and everybody, I got that app on my phone, and I'll listen to Chuck and Dan right after my show, Southern Sports Today. But the love of baseball, Ben Ingram doing play-by-play. Coach, you ever listen to a Braves game on the radio?
I do a little bit, but that list I gave you a while ago, it's between. Hey, we'll get back to pro ball. Let's get through college baseball first, and then we'll think about pro ball the second league.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben Ingram, the great voice from Mississippi too.
Yeah, he is. He is. Coach, look in the World Series now. LSU, Wake Forest. I mean, this is it. How does what if you're a coach and you've been in the World Series, you've been in the national championship game, you've been there, like what Dan and Frank and I are all asking tonight. Kind of size this one up for us. What's LSU going to do pitching wise? How deep can you go? And there's no way Paul Scanes can pitch tonight, isn't it?
Frank, I think you're better suited to answer that than I am.
Well, I will tell you, I've thought about it 2 different ways. You could bring Skeens back on 4 days rest to play this game because you got to win both of them, right? But my question back to Coach was, though, here's the only problem. If you bring him back in 4 days rest now, you could bring him back in 4 days rest on Monday. But has that ever happened, Coach? When you've got, I know there's sometimes you pick them on 4 days rest, but has it ever been set up to where they do a 4-day and 4-day back-to-back?
It's tough. I kind of think about experiences. We had a young man named Kendall Graveman. He's with the White Sox right now, was with Houston a couple of years ago when they played Braves in the World Series. And he beat Oregon State to open the series, had to beat them again a second time, and did. And then I wanted to use him a third time. John Cohen and I were together, and we got in that championship series, and we lost the first game to UCLA. And then that would be trying to get him a third appearance. And he probably went 7 innings, 6 innings. And, I probably may have cost us a national championship. I thought he needed another day. And if we get to game 3 and we held him one more day, but you don't win that game, I don't think it would have been the best for him. I think he was smoked. Paul Skeens and Kendall Graveman are 2 different men at 2 different stages. I think that's a coaching decision, really close with that player to figure out who they are, where they're at, what they're willing to do. It's really hard to see Paul Skeens anything but perfect. He's laid down the 16 most quality starts I think I've ever seen for an amateur. And if he's tired, you can't see it.
Yeah.
But that don't mean that he's not gifted. It looks like he's still got great spin on the ball, health. These are all private conversations, and we thought that we had a chance to win a national championship if we held him one more day. But we had to win that game to get there, and we didn't. But I don't think a coach can ever – you don't blink. You have no regrets if you honestly feel like you made the best decision for the young man and gave you the best path to win a championship, whether you get through that game or not.
I think it's it really is what they're going to do tonight. Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, Coach, that's an interesting, point that you're bringing up there. And, correct me if I'm wrong here. When you get to this time of the year, I mean, it's almost kind of like you're back in college and you're looking at, the amount of money you got in your bank account. And you're like, man, let's just make it to the next week. I mean, I guess where I'm trying to go with this is how do you balance, what's best for the kid, but then also too of saying, man, we really need this one.
Yeah, it's just an individual case by case. Another instance for me was in 2019. We were not equipped to win. We just barely got there. So by the time we got there, we got 2 starters out, and we got Tanner Burns was our first rounder in that ball club. And you had a father that said, we got to where we could only throw fastballs basically. So we decided to use him out of the bullpen. And the dad said, hey, my son has a future, but we want to give Auburn his arm. And I'm like, hey, I want to use him, and I love you as a father, and I appreciate you, but I want both. I want him to have success and us win too. But it just depends on, you don't know how the family is wired there. And I'm telling you what, a Paul Skeens or somebody that it doesn't matter what future he has. If he's a real line competitor, he is absolutely who I think he is.
He wants the ball.
The coach is going to have to tell him no.
That's right.
Sometimes we have to protect people from themselves because everybody talks draft, but that's everybody choking on popcorn and sitting behind. If you're inside the frame, you absolutely want the baseball. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays. So you have no idea the behind the scene conversations that you're taking place with.
And what's interesting, there's another little wrinkle because he did kind of throw a no pun intended, a curveball against Tennessee that first game. He did a lot of off-speed pitches. He did a lot of breaking balls. So, he did not really rely that much on the fastball in that first game. He kind of went totally against, against Hoyle. So that might also play into it. His arm is not as spent as what it would normally have been with him throwing those heaters.
From his pitch usage and stuff, from seeing Tennessee for a second time, they were not prepared. I think I saw as many or more changeups, and I think the changeup played so much, and I do think that bought him 2 or 3 innings into the game. It definitely got him the first time through the bat, maybe 2 times through the bat before they really adjusted. I don't think that they sit there and prepared for him breaking that out. That's where that makes it even more amazing with what he's doing. It's like whatever route he goes, it still works. That's just incredible.
Yeah, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, Coach, as you've talked about, I mean, you've coached against this LSU team quite a bit. Apologize, guys, for jumping on late if you've already talked about Dylan Cruz, but what makes him what he is? Like, what makes him the type of player? I mean, that home run he hit last night, there's not a lot of guys on this level that are able to have that power the opposite way.
Yeah, you can't teach that. So it's he's gifted from God, and as a player, hey, and a lot of guys are. I mean, there's a lot of talented players. There's more talented players in college baseball than ever. This 20-round draft, you're seeing it. you're seeing a kid like he wanted to come to college when he had an opportunity. Now, I did have Dylan some with, USA Baseball and Enrique Bradfield and that group, and working and seeing those guys in the summer, how impressed. But, I think I've heard a couple of other LSU players speak to it. He's made me a better player by playing with him. He's made me a better man by playing with him. So, yes, the two swings he put off last night, one was an F8 and one left the ballpark. You can't teach that. It's impressive. And he checked so many boxes. There's not a lot of chinks in his game. He had a tough catch going back to center field with the way that wind was working.
Yes, he did.
I think the third baseman from Tennessee absolutely smoked the ball, and that was not routine for him. And I think it became routine right at the last minute. But his eyes were working hard. That was tough for him to catch that ball. But I think a point when you have a very generational type player that sticks out the box, if he makes other teammates a better player, and then I even heard the word a better man,
that's all.
That's your guy. That's your guy. And, on a smaller scale, we had Case and Howell's done that for our program for 5 years.
Yes.
Maybe not the skill set and can't hit that ball the other way. I got it. But an amazing center fielder. When you have a player, when your best players are your best people, you got a shot.
And that's what they said about Bregman as well. The exact same thing, that he was even better off the diamond than on the diamond. And you saw how incredible he was on the diamond. Dylan Cruz is the same way.
Yeah. Coach, listen, I know you got a big day ahead of you. First off, thank you so much for taking time to share with us. And Dan Matthews, love having you. Frank, what am I even thinking? Because I know Dan loves baseball like you do and like Coach Thompson does. But thank you so much. We'd love to hear about Rob, the baseball facility. Yeah.
Rob, Dan and I were texting last night in the 7th and 8th inning. And I told him I said, 3 ain't enough, Dan. And right then, Dylan Cruz sent that missile across right field. I said, I'm feeling better now. That was my next text.
Yeah. Coach, I didn't even know that you had coached him, but let people again know how they can reach out and follow you. And maybe we can get you on for the national championship game Monday, because if it goes to that. But your insight was great. Great questions from Dan, of course, always. And you, Frank, but let them know how they can follow you, and we'll let you go on about your day and the camps.
Yeah, this was fun. Butch Thompson at auburn.edu is a way to get in touch with me. And, enjoy watching everyone. You're trying to figure out strategies because you hope to be in that frame again. Frank, y'all give them hell out there. And if you see anybody with that AU on or that Auburn, you tell them I said War Eagle.
Hey, you got it, Coach. They love you out here, buddy. I will do that.
All right. Y'all have a great day. See you, man.
All right,
thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
That is fun having Coach Thompson on. Ben Troupe's on here with us right now. Frank, where Frank went, but Dan, great questions. I know, Ben, you're over there in Savannah. You love baseball. You're a Braves guy. Dan Matthews is on here with us. That was Coach Thompson from Auburn. Frank Duffy's out in Omaha. He disappeared here for a second, but Dan, Ben played baseball in Swainsboro before he became an All-American at Florida and went to the NFL. The growth of baseball, guys, is a great thing to watch. But, man, those questions that you were asking, Dan and Frank, of Coach about the mental part of it, that's what I love the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's and Ben, you can attest to this as well, playing a sport at the highest level. I mean, baseball is as much as any. And Ben, I'm sure probably, you saw this as well. Tons of talented guys flame out because of two reasons. It's either the grind gets to them or the grind gets to them physically. And, people talk about, well, what's one of the things hurting baseball? It's the minor league system. It's the grind getting there. I actually take it the other way. I think it's what helps baseball. I think it's the fact that guys earn their way there. And I'll give you a perfect example. Of all the guys I played with growing up, if you had told me in 2023 that Matt Carpenter was still a Major League Baseball player, I would have said, how? I mean, there were probably about, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that I could have told you that could have made it. But he was the son of a coach. He was a guy that, obviously just his opportunities made the most of them, and he developed. And that's a huge part of it all. And, it's fun to watch because, it always cracks me up at the major league level when people say, "Oh, so and so is terrible." I say, "Oh no, they're not. Trust me, they've earned their way up here. They're the best of the best to be here."
No, I agree. I think the main thing about baseball that people don't give enough credit for, it's an endurance sport. You got to, it's a marathon that you swing bats and play outfield. And I do agree when you get to talking about baseball. I think what baseball realizes is you got to put a microscope on it like they do in South America, right? Because South America, that's all they have. They don't have football and basketball. Baseball is their sport. That's why usually the best players in MLB are South American. I mean, and that's by design, like Tatis and Ronald Acuna and so on and so forth. But I will say this: postseason baseball in the majors is just, I don't know if it's better than postseason baseball in college. Postseason baseball in college is no lead is safe. 5-0 going into the 8th inning means nothing when it comes. And obviously, I'm a proud Florida Gator. Love the fact that my Gators still in it. They haven't. Oral Roberts and these teams have not made it easy. But sometimes we watching some of the best athletes in sport. They just happen to play baseball. I mean, Florida got tags. This dude look like a tight end, defensive end. He pitches and got a big bat, but nobody's safe. But I know people want to talk about what is the best league in baseball. It's hard to argue it's not the SEC. It's really hard to not when you look at how many teams are coming out of this caliber player, or coming out of these caliber players. And I've been very, very impressed. Baseball, I tell people this. People go, why don't most people play baseball? Because they can't see or hit a curveball. You can't see it, and then they're going to throw a changeup on you. So for those people that think, I can play baseball, you don't got that much time to make a decision. I know it looks like, oh, he can't see that. No, and neither can you, because you only get, half a millisecond to the side. Is that a changeup? Some of these things are just crazy. I'm just super duper impressed by these young men, because baseball players used to be small, tiny dudes, right? Not much bigger than soccer players. These dudes 6'4", 6'5", 6'3", 220. They look like, they look like, very, very, very well-conditioned athletes. I'm happy for all of them. But if you only ever make it to the minor leagues, you won in baseball. If you even make it to the minors, you won, because it's so many. I got a friend, man, that we on the radio, and his sons play baseball. They have given up their weekends since age 5 and 6. They haven't seen a free Saturday, and that's during the season. Yeah. Also, so shout out to the parents that invest in their young kids, into their children, because I don't think people understand how much time, money, effort, and resources go into baseball, and it's only growing day by day.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan, I mean, I agree. I think this is cool, because talking about Florida, Florida is really playing some good baseball. You are, like you say, unavowed an Astros fan, World Series champions. You got a lot to be proud of, but baseball. Ben knows baseball. Ben's right. The size of these guys. I mean, when I was at Auburn, when we saw Frank Thomas play, he stood out. He was 6'5", 250. And if you ever talked to anybody that was on the team and we knew him that pitched, they said – a big part of the thing was standing on the mound looking at that guy going, God, if he hits it and he hits me, I may not wake up. But, Dan, this College World Series this year at LSU, are you surprised at how they've been able to overcome not having a ton of depth with pitching, to take Ackenhauser out there? And we talked with Coach Thompson about that, and Frank had to go. But that was unbelievable. He had never started a game before, and he gives you 6 innings of scoreless baseball.
Yeah, if they come back, I mean, and that's a huge if, because the mindset for them now needs to be, you win tonight, you earn tomorrow. Because I know a lot of people, and me included, hey, when could they use Skeens? I'm sure you guys talked about this a little bit with Coach Thompson, and if you guys want to hop in on this as well, I'm pretty hard pressed to believe that this morning there wasn't a knock on Jay Johnson's door, and he looks through his keyhole, and it's Paul Skeens saying, "I want the ball. I want to go tonight." But it's the competitor, but it's also too. I mean, Jay Johnson's got a way. is it worth the squeeze to do that? Do I want that in order to give ourselves an opportunity to get to tomorrow? Or do I want to give ourselves a chance with the guys? Because you're 100% right. Nate Ackenhausen, he might have – if LSU wins it, people are going to talk about Nate Ackenhausen saving this pitching staff because he did. If he had given them 4 innings last night, that would have been more than enough that you could have asked for. But the fact that he did, you didn't have to use Gavin Guidry, where maybe you can go multiple innings with him tonight. And if you get to tomorrow, maybe you can. Blake Money, another guy that's got experience pitching at this level. I mean, somebody else that can help. But, it's the college kid with the budget thing that I talked about. I think we were all in that situation at one time in college where, you looked at the bank account and you're like, uh-oh, I better make the meal plan work until next week. Or, I got to, really try to stretch this out. Because, that's what it is. You look at your options and you're kind of like, I need some guys to step up. And look, when you have a performance like what Ackenhausen gave you last night, that's being able to stretch your money, per se.
Yeah.
That's being able to say, I bought myself a day or two of not having to spend and not having to do all that. So, yeah. That's kind of the hope for them. Here's the other thing as well, guys. Ben was talking about postseason baseball. And everybody falls into the trap of how can you not hit this guy? How can you not hit this guy? Well, he's here, so he's one of the best of the best. And you're facing one of the best and the best. Yeah. And I would tell, the audience to do one thing. There's a guy on Twitter in terms of how hard it is to hit pitching that does an outstanding job. His name's Rob Friedman, and he's the pitching ninja on Twitter. And he does an outstanding job of showing overlays of pitchers where it's a fastball, 97. It's a slider, 88. It's a changeup, 82. And laying the pitches, molding the video all together. Ben, you talked about how hard it is to not only make a snap decision, but to guess. And you see the different locations these pitches are. Good luck. It shows you the guys that are the best of the best that are hitting over 300. And that's what cracks me up. People, how is this guy in Major League Baseball that's a career 240 hitter getting, $16, $18 million a year? Well, because he's one of the best of the best. Don't look at the average. Look at how often he gets on base and look at his power numbers. Oh, he strikes out a lot. Everybody strikes out a lot. Yeah.
Ben, he's right. You get to the Hall of Fame if you strike out 70% of the time.
Yeah, the ultimate game of failure is baseball. The best players just fail at a lesser rate. Everybody's failing. Everybody is. Yeah. It's just he just and the thing about baseball is it's one of those. It is unforgiving. It really, really is because we get caught up in who is and who is not. If you look at a player saying he's not that good, that means he's better than 99.9% of any baseball player you're ever going to see. So if he's bad, that means we're awful. Because and the thing is, I'm judging the best versus the best. So if Bumgarner is going up against Tatis strikes out, well, that's the best pitcher in the world going up against one of the best. College baseball is not far off. A lot of these guys can walk away from college, walk right into an MLB ball club, and they can still do what they're doing because hitting is such a unique science. It is the hardest thing to do because first I got to make contact. Then I got to actually make good enough contact to get a hit because people hit 400 feet, 500 feet. That means bat speed is coming at that bat speed is just as crazy as the freaking pitcher. And I'm just in all these players because for everybody that think they can hit anything, please stop going to these batting cages with this little machine. That's not it. They throwing the same pick. No. Go to one of these. No. Go to a high school. Don't even go to no college. Go to a high school and say, hey, man, throw me a changeup. What? Throw me a change. You can go to any high school there is because people you're not going to see these pitches. The first time and only time I ever saw a curveball in college, when he threw it, I pointed the bat at him and said, if you hit me with it, because it's coming right at me. I'm like, he's throwing. I know, but that's why it's called, a curveball. And a changeup don't look much different. shout out to every team that made it to the College World Series, that made it to Omaha. You won. I know everybody wants to be the ultimate winner, but college baseball has got to be as competitive as every other sport in college because these players are getting so good within a year. And if you can find a way to get you a pitcher in the transfer portal that was dominant in a previous conference, please snatch him. Because these guys, because baseball is the one sport, it really doesn't matter what conference you win. But shout out to every team that made it. And them LSU boys, we hope, you better hope they don't come back because I think they're the most dangerous team left in it.
I do too. Let's do this. We got to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back. Dan, hang on if you can. Love this. Ben, Troupe. Frank Duffy had to go. He said Rhonda wanted breakfast. She was starved. Frank had been talking baseball since about 5 o'clock this morning.
He can cook some breakfast now. I don't blame Rhonda.
Oh yeah,
Frank makes some breakfast.
He cooked at the lake before the Auburn LSU game last year. It was ridiculous what he did. But we'll be right back. Sidelines, take a quick break. More of this great baseball conversation.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Ben Troupe, ESPN Coastal over in Savannah, Georgia. That along with New Orleans and Hattiesburg, 3 of the hottest cities on the planet, and Dan Matthews over in Atlanta. I know, Dan, you're getting ready Southern Sports today, you and Chuck Oliver. Great show yesterday, listening to a lot of the Matrix guy was really cool. And I'm going to tell you what, college baseball right now is at the zenith. We got the World Series coming up. Dan, we're talking about, like Ben says, the culture. You go down to the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico and Curacao and all the islands and Central and South America. It is everything like college football is in the South. When you look at this World Series, matchup, Wake Forest, we had a guy on, Josh Graham, talking about Wake Forest Saturday. That's a hell of a program. And like Coach Thompson said, they're in the Power 5. They've been building this for a long time. I love that possibility you brought up of Paul Skeens knocking on the door and going, hey, I want the ball. I mean, this is what it's all about, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's competitive. But it's also, too, to build off a point that Ben brought up that I think this is for the baseball parents out there. I want my son to be a major leaguer. Everybody says that to their travel ball coach or to anybody that will listen. My number one piece of advice to them, and Ben, either agree or disagree on this, my number one piece of advice to them is you better make sure they know how to fail. I mean, you better make sure they know that, because more often than not in baseball, you're going to fail. A pitcher gets up a 3-run homer. Oh, why aren't they showing more emotion? Because they realize they're still in the fight. They can't take themselves mentally out of the fight, because the next thing you got to do, you got to get the baseball back and you got to get out of that inning. And you got to find a way to be able to grind through and keep you guys right there. Because if you mentally take yourself out of it, you not only hurt yourself, you hurt your team. And that's what these guys, Ben, the point you brought up about the marathon, you're swinging bats, you're throwing balls. The guys at the next level, they realize that more than anybody. I mean, what comes to mind for me is, you guys notice Brian Snitker after every single game. If it's a win, he's saying, great job. We got to come back and get him tomorrow. If it's a loss, it happens. We got to come back and get him tomorrow. But the moral of the story is he's the same guy. And that's why those guys go to battle for him every single day. And that's what it is. I mean, the best of the best, they can deal with the highs of going, 8 for their last 9 at the plate. But they can also deal with the lows of going 0 for their last 9 at the plate and saying, you know what, it's the next at-bat that matters. It's the next opportunity. It's the next ball that comes to me that matters. I mean, look at Jordan Thompson last night for LSU. He boots that ball, and you think to yourself, uh-oh. I mean, he already popped up the bunts. He made that great play, but if he takes himself mentally out, LSU loses that game. But I think he immediately said to himself, I got to put that behind me. I mean, it's a defender that gets burned on a play in football. I got to put that in my back pocket, and it's got to be the next play. And sure enough, he got another ball hit to him, and he made the play. And that's why, for baseball, the kids out there that hear this, you got to deal with failure, because guess what? Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. And if you can't deal with it, then baseball might not be for you.
Absolutely. I mean, Ben, good point. And also, you think about the wear and tear on your body for a pitcher to go in and say, I want that ball. Man, I like what Coach Thompson said. The mental part of it, Ben. It's football, it's a game. You got a week off. And I was listening to an interview I saw last night. Actually, it was Scott Farrell, lock of the week. And he was talking about taking ice baths. He said the hockey players, he was talking about when he did hockey, and all these athletes now, Ben, did you have an ice bath, or you used to have an ice bath at your house? I mean, the what it does to your body. But I keep thinking, Dan's got me intrigued. Paul Skeens going in there going, give me the ball. Because, hey, if LSU doesn't beat Wake Forest today, the season's over. But if they were to, Paul Skeens were to pitch tonight somehow, and they still got to do it again. They got to beat Wake Forest. If they beat them once, they still got to beat them another time. This is a grind, man. There's no other championship format that lasts 11 days like this.
No, baseball is so unique because you work your whole life for these moments. I mean, and you doing it for the guys that didn't make it. I mean, I know we are competitors, but you still represent the ones that didn't, because we all look. No one's putting in this notion. Oh, I'm making sure I'm doing what my competitors are not doing. No, I mean, Dan makes a bunch of great points when he's talking about when it comes to baseball. You better make sure your kid knows how to fit. My daughter, 11 years old, hell of an athlete. She got the bloodline. Like, I'm her biggest fan, obviously. But she's never met real failure. And the reason why I say it is every sport she plays, flag football, thank God for flag football, because she want to go out there with the boys. That just ain't happening. Yeah. Soccer, both club. She plays soccer for the club team and her middle school. She plays flag football for her school and the league. She plays basketball for her school and AAU. And she's always a crowd pleaser. You know what I told her? Your teammates better love playing with you. Whenever you start complaining about what you're not getting, I'm going to snatch you out. Because Ron Zook, the coach I had my last 2 years at Florida, said the only reason why people show up is because it's a scoreboard. If there was no scoreboard, they're not showing up. Right. Because how do I validate? All we control is out there on that field. And I do think with baseball, man, you could be having the best game ever as a pitcher. You have one bad inning. One game totally goes the other way. Baseball, you got to have the shortest memory there is, because you play at all, especially the majors. You play every day. So for me, I'm just impressed by the grind, day in, day out. For a college pitcher to go to his coach and say, look, man, I want the ball, man. Meaning I am willing to lose it if you give it to me. I'm willing to lose, coach, if I'm out there. I'd rather put it on me. That's what college athletics supposed to teach you, that, hey, man, if it's the last play, Troupe, you want to throw it to you? Yep, because I can live with dropping it. I can handle what comes with it. Most players, that's what you got to learn. How do I deal with when I don't make it? Like when the coach said, the reason why I don't yell at players when they drop the passes, because they stuck their hands up. So he was trying to catch it. He just didn't catch it. Baseball is, man, one era, the magnitude of the situation, national TV, hopes and dreams. So shout out to all these players, because like I said, being a pitcher and a catcher is the most unique positions in sports, because nothing else is like it. One guy got to be on his knees squatting down for 3 hours. The other guy got to deal with the crowd and these incredible batters, because the baseball players can't do nothing else. They can hit the baseball, whether they're a pitcher, and it will leave the yard quick. But shout out to them, because if Benjamin had to go to college for Florida to play at Florida baseball, I would have been in the stands, because I just respect it. And I'm a Braves fan, so I come from a long line of being spoiled when it comes to baseball, because the Braves have been good for so long. I'm out there thinking I'm Terry Pendleton at third base, or Chipper. I think I'm Andrew Jones in center field, or Otis Nixon. I'm none of those people. I'm being Troupe. Don't hit it at me, because my coach gonna be like, how the hell he get out there? Because somebody was hurt. That's the only way I would have got out there, and they would have probably tried to call in. But shout out to them players, man. I want to make sure I'm rooting for Florida, but I'm rooting for all of them to do well.
Yeah. Dan, look, I know you got to get into the studio, and real quick before you go, first off, thanks so much for joining us. And I know it was kind of spur of the moment. I'm glad anytime you're welcome on here. I'll send that link to you. But let people know what you're going to be also talking about today on Southern Sports Today, which comes up right after Sidelines goes off the air. And I've got that app on my phone. I listen to it when I'm doing my post-show editing.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And Ben, it's also great to catch up with you again and see you next month in Nashville too. Looking forward to SEC Media Days. We've got a look at the state of Texas. Mike Craven does a fantastic job for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. That is the premier magazine in the state of Texas for not only high school, which we know how huge high school football is in the Lone Star State, but also too for Mike. He covers all the colleges. He was at University of Houston yesterday, so we'll talk a lot of the Lone Star State with him. Ryan Fowler from Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. I'm sure you guys heard this. Nick Saban said a couple of interesting things the other day, so we'll talk talking season and the Crimson Tide coach with him. Glenn Gilbo, who covers the SEC for Outkick, but he is a longtime LSU reporter as well. He is in Omaha, so we'll talk a little bit of Omaha with him, but also too as well talk some football, and then we'll round it out with Jake Rowe from Dogs HQ, the On3 website, because huge news in the state of Georgia this morning. Dylan Raiola, the number one player in this class, decided to leave the state of Arizona and move to Georgia and play his final year of high school football at Buford High School in Gwinnett County, which is one of the premier high school programs, not only in the state of Georgia, but also in the country as well. So we'll see how he stacks up against some of the best before he makes his way over to Athens next year. But at Chuck Oliver Show, how you find us on Twitter. At Dan Matthews ATL is how you find me on Twitter. At King CFB is how you find Chuck on Twitter as well. And guys, always appreciate the time. Ben, great to catch up with you again. We'll do it again here very soon.
All right, man. There's so much stuff to listen to. I mean, my God, Dan, that's awesome. Southern Sports Today. Dylan Raiola moving to Buford, one of the many, many, many powerhouses in the Metro Atlanta, which is taking over the world of college football. It's unbelievable. All right, Dan. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Take care.
You too. That is, man. He's moving from Arizona. Now, I don't know if the current quarterback there at Buford has been told.
Hey,
that ought to be a fun one.
Politics, Rob, have gone from college sports to high school sports, because that young man who's a starter right now, if he don't know, right, it's kind of like Zach Wilson with the Jets. When Zach Wilson sees, wait a minute, we just traded for Aaron Rodgers? Yep, that means he's number one. You just wear number two. Yes, you will be number two, not just on the field, but off the field as well. But hey, man, shout out to him. The man trying to get used to the heat, humidity, and the landscape, because being the starting quarterback potentially at Georgia comes with a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, it will, and that's going to be a big story there, Buford. Hey, Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline in Oxford, Mississippi is going to join us here in just a second, Ben. And I want to say, man, how much I appreciate you being on here. And I know you were going to be on last Friday, and the sad news about Joni Martin, Buddy Martin's wife. That is just, man, beautiful lady. And I love reading the tribute from Franz Beard and other people on GatorbaitMedia.com. But man, you're right. You can't do it without a great wife. 61 years they were married. And, you know, I saw Brendan on the show last week, and then I got your message early Friday morning. But, man, she lived a great life, which means her legacy will live on forever. But I know you're going to miss her because you are really tight, and they look at you as part of their family like a son because you've been doing so much with them. And Franz even talked about you the other day. He said, you know, Ben, we didn't know Ben his first couple of years. He was this quiet guy, good-looking kid, good athlete, you know, worked his butt off. All of a sudden, when the bell rang and it was his time to step up, wow. And you've been with those guys for a long time. And but I know you have a lot of special feelings and love for Buddy and Franz and Miss Joni and she's just I did not know her, but getting to know Buddy and Franz and you these last 3 years, wow, you can see behind everyone is a great woman like her.
Absolutely. I mean, I read a tribute that Franz said about Miss Joni, just calling her elegant, and you know, Buddy is a dear friend of mine, and obviously going back to my playing days, I knew who the legendary Buddy Martin was, but I already knew that Buddy had, you know, an incredible rock in you know, as a, you know, in Miss Joni to be able, because you could tell that he was able to just go out there and be who he is and what he does. But Lauren Meadows, who's also part of Gator Bay, he lost his mother this year as well. And so, I mean, when it comes, you become, sometimes it takes tragedy, unfortunately, to show you just how close you are to people. They don't even know how, you know, and Buddy's such a consummate professional, man. And
yeah,
obviously I'm praying for him all the time. I mean, because, you know, life without her is going to be tough. 61 years of anything is a long time. 61 years of marriage, that's what we all strive to be. I mean, so I saw the tribute that they had for her on, you know, the social media outlets. But yeah, Miss Joni is definitely going to be missed. We going to listen. Buddy Martin needs us more than ever. I already told him, man. I said, Buddy, listen, man, you might as well call me Benjamin Martin, man. I'm gonna be tied to the hip to you. You know, I'm Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, the three of us with Lauren Meadows. You know, I just appreciate Buddy Martin, because when Buddy Martin say you can do it, you can do it. If Buddy Martin say you got chops, you got. And so I'm deeply indebted to this man. I'm a ride with him. You know, I told him, I said, listen, man, I'm gonna need you. You know, you're going to be the first 150-year-old man. I'm going to need you about for my 50 more years, man. Be like, well, Ben, I don't know if I'm going to give you that much, but I'm going to be praying for him. And obviously my prayers, you know, go out to him for Miss Joni. But Franz Beard, man, what he said about it, what Lauren said about it, what Brennan said about it, what people say about her, definitely let you know she had a lasting legacy. Yeah,
it's incredible. I mean, my parents, I think November 22nd will be 65 years. My dad would go, don't remind me. No, I'm kidding. It's not like everybody loves Raymond Peter Boyle. My God, that poor guy. he was in a sentence, but no, that incredible. Let's join in here now. Yancy Porter, proud native son of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Rebel Yell Hotline on with Ben Troupe, Gatorbait Media, and ESPN Coastal. And Yancy, College World Series this time last year, you were out in Omaha. I'd say Oxford. Oxahaw. I'm almost going to call it Oxahaw. Sounds like Octibbeha County, where Starkville is. But anyway, your opinions and your thoughts about the College World Series this year, looking at it as the team, the defending national champion, how precious it is, because a year later, you know, you didn't even get to Hoover. You're rebuilding $128 million into that baseball stadium in Oxford. This game's getting bigger by the minute, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, you look at the crowds. I was looking at Oral Roberts and TCU in the packed stadium, and, you know, we always expect it to be packed when an SEC team is there playing, but just the crowds that are building there outside the stadiums now. I was talking to some friends, and there's 25,000 people outside of the stadium during the games. It's just, it's you know, it's America's pastime, but, you know, as far as the World Series right now, this is building to a Florida and Wake Forest showdown without a doubt.
Yeah, LSU is going to have their work cut out. They beat Wake Forest tonight. They got to beat them again tomorrow. That's a tough task. But hey, they're still alive, and we got two out of three SEC teams still alive. As Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, Ben.
Yeah, the SEC baseball, to me, SEC baseball regular season is equivalent to ACC basketball regular season because you run the gauntlet. I mean, you got some of the best teams and players are right there in your conference, and sometimes it's just making it out of there. Like, man, can we even make it out of here to even have a shot in the SEC tournament? And I just know that when it comes to SEC baseball, you talk about Mississippi State, you talk about Ole Miss, talk about Tennessee, talk about LSU, talk about my Gators. It's like every time I get a chance to talk to one of the players from Florida, I always ask them, who's your favorite team to play against? In the SEC, they say I can't stand none of them because they all that good. Like they all are that good. But
yeah,
it's such a great representation because obviously you want to do it for your team, but this SEC conference, and mind you, it's this good before Texas and Oklahoma come over. It's already ridiculous. So now you're going to inherit those two teams. But shout out to every team that made the Omaha, man. It's such a prestigious thing because 299 eligible Division I college baseball teams can go, and only so many. To me, that's crazy. That's a lot of. Listen, man, that's a lot of sunflower seeds, people. 299. There's a lot of sunflower seeds that are going around these days. But shout out to them players because, like I say, these players they're so advanced now. It's not like they need development once they get drafted. They can walk from whatever. They can walk from Oxford, walk straight into a major league, ball club. But shout out to all of them because, like I said, if you go to sleep because the game is 6-0 going into the 8th inning, you missed out because the game is 2 hours later. The game is over because these late game heroics, I guess every team got the memo and no lead is safe when you are in the College World Series.
Yeah, and let me say this too. For all those fans out there around the country, and we hear it said, they're growing weary of Yancy and Ben of what they call SEC fatigue. Well, I'm going to just punch you in the gut again. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Here is more news. Jason Gay from the Wall Street Journal. This was just sent to me by one of our listeners. Auburn University is known for major college sports like football, but the school's student-run bass fishing team has become a powerhouse, winning national championships and even $1 million tournament. Sports call, that's from Jason Gay. And that was sent to me by one of our listeners over in Hickory, North Carolina, Mr. Ernest T. Bass, especially when I'm dancing. Thank you, Mrs. Wiley. May I have the next dance? Yancy, what are we not great in?
Well, there's not much.
Honestly,
tennis.
What about dancing?
Golf, women's rifle, gymnastics.
Bowling, Vanderbilt. 2 national championships the last 5 years. I mean, bowling. Come on. What's the greatest bowling movie of all time? Kingpin. Hey, your friend always act like that when he drinks ginger ale. No, he was sniffing glue in the parking lot before he came in here. So how does the rest of this hustle go? Some of the great bowling lines.
Listen, no, Yancy, we are good in golf. Florida just won it all in golf this year. See, Florida won it all in golf. Yeah. But the thing is too, right? Nothing is greater as an SEC sport than student bass fishing. Nothing. I'm talking about, you know how many people are pissed off? They're saying, wait a minute, they got bat, yes. And because your kid learned how to fish from you, that's why he ain't get recruited. What? Don't listen. If you only go fishing in man-made ponds, that's not fishing. You can't stock it with whatever you want and that's not fishing. And if you live by the ocean, that's not fishing either. If you don't have to watch your reel, if I can cast it, stick it in the ground and wait, that is not fishing is, hey man, what they got over here, man? They got them catfish, they over there snapping. And to you people, man, that go in the mud and stick your hand into the little hole and pull the fish out, may God bless you. You got, because for one, that water looks like mud, and I can't remember what they call it. But the fact that I know that they have student bass fishing, I'm gonna start a Twitter war today saying, listen, every other school is trash because you can't even fish. And I gotta call my Florida team now. Hey man, what the hell y'all doing? You in the state of Florida and you losing to Auburn or Tennessee and bass fishing? What the hell going on, man? I ain't even know that my granddaddy. Thank God he's not alive, because if he was and he knew it was bass fishing, and I told him I'm going to Florida for football, he gonna say, "Boy, I have not raised you right. You going for football? They got bass fishing, boy." Hey, I didn't even know they had that, but just another reason you see the brag. We brag about everything. God forbid we win the debate team. Them teams gonna be pissed. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, but look, and Yancy and Ben, interestingly, you think about now, Audrey and our oldest one, Mallory's husband, Tyler, his grandmother had a pond down in Sandersville, Georgia. And when Tyler was a kid, he was a little bit older. Well, he might be. No, I'm not sure no, he's not. No, Takeo was older than him, but his grandmother, when he would go down to Sandersville, would say, no, Takeo's going to come fish with you. And he didn't know who he was. He's just Takeo. He said, I watched this guy. He's just got bigger and bigger. And it was Takeo Spikes. That dude loves hunting and fishing. And Ben, I mean, Yancy, think about it. When you read the media guide, most every one of these players, their favorite hobbies, hunting and fishing. And I love the greatest bumper sticker, Yancy, I ever saw was in Flowood, Mississippi, getting some gas at the Esso station. And it said, you're a redneck if you're too drunk to go fishing. How about that one?
I don't think I've ever been in that position. No matter how many beverages I've took in, I think I've been able to fish. So
yeah,
that would definitely be you're a redneck if you're too drunk to fish.
Yeah,
that's a great bumper sticker.
If you're too drunk to fish, you're a quitter. What are you talking about, man? Get your behind out there. And what do you need? And what kind of water are you on that you really need to focus on steering anyway? Like where are you at? See, that's what I'm saying, right? We've been spoiled in the South. We got ponds where I'm from. People start talking about rivers and lakes, and I said, listen, bro, I don't know where I'm from. I could jump in the if something happened, I could jump out the water and swim the shore. Like I don't want to do that. Yeah. But where y'all at, I said, people go, hey man, what is that? That's a life jacket. No, I'm on the wrong boat. I don't need no life jacket, man. That means this water deep as hell. No. I need to be to where if I yell, somebody can throw a rope out and pull me back in. Now I go, we get all bougie and sedity. Now, hey man, I'm going saltwater fish. No, if I got to strap myself in, no, Moby Dick, he can have this round. I'm not dealing with that. I'm going to do that one day because Tyreek Hill just got one. But once again, you're cheating because they know the spots. They know where to go. Yeah. And you're in the ocean. I mean, hell, if you can't.
Yeah, they strap you in that dental chair and you just go out there for hours on there. Yancy, man, look, it's summertime. It's the first day of summer. Ben was telling me what he did for summer solstice celebration, the longest day of the year today. And college football magazines are hitting the newsstands. SEC Media Days coming up in 4 weeks, man. It's going to be this time in 4 weeks. We're going to be up there hearing from coaches and players. And that's really when they say football season starts. But it's a great time of year always to talk about college football. Let's talk about Ole Miss, Austin Simmons. I want your thoughts about that because he took one from the Gators. They've got DJ Legway. But, man, this quarterback room at Ole Miss is kind of scary. If he thought there was competition at Florida, it's like Gatorbait wrote, man, what does he think he's going to see at Oxford? Good grief.
I don't know. I mean, can you play 10 quarterbacks at once? It's just
about right.
It's Austin. He took a faith leap there, a leap of faith. Excuse me. He's a guy that most likely will be redshirted. Look, the guy was classified in 2025. Reclassified down to 23, even though he's 17 years old. So he's probably right where he should be. He's an interesting story there. He was homeschooled. He's been to several different high schools there. He played high school football at one school, high school baseball at another school to be close to his dad in one season, close to his mom in another season. He is definitely well-traveled. So, the quarterback room there at Ole Miss is stacked. Just wish that they could find just one more edge rusher.
Well, Ben, you hear him talking about this. You came to Florida. You weren't the only tight end that they signed. So talk about that, the competition. Austin Simmons, I mean, he was going to be a Gator. Now he's not. He's not the only guy to do that. But for his dad, who's a high school coach to come out and say, A, Florida's schedule is too tough, and B, they want Lagway anyway. I wouldn't want my dad talking for me. I'd want to do my own talking, but you played college and pro football. Your thoughts?
Well, I do. The thing about it is his dad, I mean, he spoke to – you don't have to say everything you feel. You could just say, man, I flipped. I want to go to Florida. Now I'm going to go to Ole Miss. You don't got to say things like the schedule or they want Lagway. No, they're going to do this every year. You think they're going to stop recruiting quarterbacks because you come on? No, they're going to try to get their job. Listen, we're trying to get as much talent as they possibly can, but sometimes getting acclimated to college gets your mind off the competition. Sometimes I got to figure out what this college thing is. I got to figure out how do I fit in this scheme. I got to figure out what they're trying to get from me. Then I got to learn the playbook. Then I got to make sure I'm a good student. Then I got to make sure I'm not a distraction. Then I got to make sure I don't hit that send button on one of these social media platforms that could get me in trouble. It's so much. Look, Florida got this Netflix special coming out called Swamp Tales, right? From the 06 to 09 Florida team. Urban Meyer, Percy Harvin, Tim Tebow, Brandon Spikes, Carlos Dunlap, the Pouncey twins, the golden era.
Yep.
I was talking with Lewis Murphy yesterday on my podcast, and I was just asking him, Lewis, what are we going to see? Lewis says, Ben, I want to see it too. Because there's so many personalities. College football specifically, they are the biggest ambassadors at the school, taking nothing away from the other sports. So when you start talking about wanting to go to Ole Miss is in the SEC. They win in 9 and 10 games, and ain't nobody even talking about it. You know how hard it is to win 9 and 10 games in the SEC West, and they're doing it consistently. So I'm not mad at Daddy Simmons, but Daddy Simmons got to understand it is your job to protect your son. AKA, if you don't know how to interview, don't open your mouth because they're gonna use it against him. If he doesn't go out and perform, they're gonna say, "Well, they said they ain't won't come." I'm telling you, people, listen. If you want to know how to talk to the media, go to the Bill Belichick school of interviewing. Go to his school. He will show you how to filibuster and say a whole bunch of nothing. Because I think what happens is when it comes to these players, they forget I'm just one of 24 other high-profile players. Everybody coming in here is high-profile, right? I mean,
yep.
I remember when Robert Ndici went to Ole Miss. This boy, I remember when he was #1 recruit in the. I remember
Kim Dichie, yeah.
Ndici, and his brother was already on the team, and they had Larry Thompson, they had Laquan Treadwell, right? I remember that. So Ole Miss been putting them out. This ain't the home of Eli and Archie. That's what you're talking about, Mr. Simmons. Come on, man. Isn't speed?
Is that the Vandy Whistler in the background? Is that the Vandy Whistler in the background? Somebody go punch that guy. Ben, you're big enough. If I ever see that guy, let me just tell you, my phone screen was cracking. Pat Cornelius and Ray Mooring, two of my fraternity brothers from Auburn. During the baseball, they were going, somebody go over and blank, blank, beep, the decorum, as Niedermeyer said in Animal House, they're so horrible. The decorum prohibits me repeating their words. But I thought I heard the Vandy listener, but whoever was talking, you're back on the clock.
Ben and Rob, what I didn't understand was the schedule part about Florida's schedule was too tough, considering Ole Miss has the #1 rated schedule in the country this year, and they pick up Southern Cal for a 2-game series next year. So I mean, the following year after that. So I did not. That sounded really weird to me about the schedule deal because on paper, Ole Miss's schedule is going to be tougher than Florida's for the next couple of years. But, really what he probably wanted to say is I think that Lane Kiffin is a better developer of quarterbacks than Billy Napier. And he just didn't want to come out and flat out say that. Then he said a couple other things to try to be more politically correct and not get people mad down there in Florida. But if the truth serum came out and somebody gave him a shot, I think that's what he would have said.
Well, I tell you, Billy Napier is getting players down there. Lane Kiffin is. Lane Kiffin's different. Ben, Yancy was saying about he'll go to the beat for a week.
Quarterback. Everybody's got their strengths, and Lane Kiffin's strengths, we all know, is developing quarterbacks. So that's his. Billy could say, well, mine's developing defensive players. Mine's developing, defensive scheme. So, I mean, everybody has their strengths. But I'm with Ben there. He's got to start letting the kid talk for himself and just kind of, probably less is better, right? Less is always better. Don't even say a whole lot.
I mean,
just say I felt just like everybody else. I felt more at home, right? That's always the
and that's right. And listen, I'm not, and Yancy, I'm not one of these former players. I want a player to pick where he picked. Like I'm not. He should have picked. We don't know who the hell nobody's gonna be until they get there. We act like no. You know how many 5 stars have never played at quarterback the last 3 years because of Stetson? They've been in the room, they just haven't played, right? These guys are highly recruited. So I do think that, yes, anybody that said, listen, the 2 premier quarterback whisperers in the country are Lincoln Riley, right? Yeah. And Lane Kiffin. Everybody knows that. And that's all you got to say. Say, hey, man, I don't look like Anthony Richardson, and I'm not going to do what he can do, so I'm going to Ole Miss. Matt Corral was supposed to go to Florida, but we had Jim McElwain, and he ends up at Ole Miss. I mean, these things happen. Just once again, be very, very careful on what you say to the media, because once again, you giving them material when they don't need it, and they're going to use it against you if and when it does go bad. Plus, I think college football is better when Lane Kiffin is tweeting at other coaches and players. I like that he does that. I mean, his personality is why he's in, the SEC. I don't like buttoned up, politically correct Lane. I want Lane talking trash to Florida, talking trash to Tennessee, talking trash to Alabama. Because what? Because you know what? He's still making millions, and he's still a hell of a coach. Why not enjoy yourself, man? I mean, come on. I know what it is. He had to go from Boca Raton to Oxford. That's why he pitched. That's what it is.
Look. As much as I love Oxford, that would be a hard move for me. Going from deep sea fishing out there in the sun every day to Oxford, that's a hard move. But you are going from FAU to the SEC, so that's a different story.
Let me say something here too. We have to inform our listeners. We're based in Memphis. I'm over here in the Delta at the Cherry Farm in Cross County. It's first day of summer solstice. Do the summer solstice dance, however you choose. When you're down on the coast in 30A, Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, whatever, it's a Yankee when they say, come on, man, let's go to the ocean. God dang it, it's the Gulf. You call it the Gulf. It's the Gulf of Mexico. Now, those things we got to learn too. Another one is, both y'all grew up in the country. You're from Hattiesburg. You're from Swainsboro, Georgia. People say, what in the hell is hoop cheese? Somebody explain to me what hoop cheese is. Now, most people, if they're from the South, know it, but hoop cheese, hook cheese. What do you call it, Ben?
No. I got one better than that. You know what I have to deal with all the time, because I lived up north there. I say, what the hell is a buggy? A buggy is what you put your food in when you go into the grocery store. Like that's a grocery car. That's a buggy, man. When I lived up north there, I said, man, where the buggies at? They was like, what? Where is the buggies? They was like this. We'll get it. The manager like, sir, what are you, a buggy? He said a shopping cart? Hell no, that's a buggy, man. Like where I'm from in the South, and I'm not talking about South Florida. Look, man, when we driving down the street during plum season, if the plum tree is on the side of the highway, we will pull over. Somebody got to say, get the hell out of my yard. We getting them plums. We put them in our shirt. We take Kool-Aid, right? We take Kool-Aid, we put it in styrofoam cups. Listen, and we put it in the freezer. That's called an icy. That's where I'm from. I'm from a place like that. I don't eat caviar. I will eat steak as long as I don't got to pay for it, because steak is expensive as hell. I'll eat it, but I don't want to pay for it.
And that's the thing. We're about out of time, but Yancy, this, driving around in the South. I'm going to write a book one day called My Favorite Heat Lamp Food, because during duck season, a lot of times you're starved and you're eating like, can I have some food with my plastic, please, sir? No, thank you. Come again. But Yancy, kind of educate people again. We got listeners all over the place. I get some texts from some of these people that just blow my mind, but the most unique things to, say, the Mississippi Delta, like how about the WW grocery store over there by Moon Lake on the way to Helena, where my grandparents are from? You run into some country grocery stores with those concrete slab floors at 10:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning in the Mississippi Delta. There's a bunch of people in there drinking cold beer, eating cheeseburgers and mustard, pickles, and onions and mayonnaise. But give us something unique to the Delta that you love that people need to know about? Because I got a dog named Delta, if you want to know how much I love that part of the country.
I mean, to me, when I think of the Delta, I think of duck hunting. It's got the best duck hunting in the world. That's to me the first thing that comes to my mind. Everybody else is cotton. Mine is duck hunting. So that's the unique thing to me with the Delta. But yes, as far as the grocery stores, no question about it. That as I call it, the pick-a-packs. If nobody else would know that a gas station is called a pick-a-pack unless you're truly from Mississippi, because that's where your granddaddy went and got a pack of cigarettes, right? So a gas station was called a pick-a-pack. So
I love it.
I'll even still, sometimes catch myself saying, "Are you going to the pick-a-pack?" And people look at me like, "What in the world is Yancy saying?" But that's what my granddaddy called it, because that's where everybody got a pack of cigarettes. You pick which pack of cigarettes you got. So the gas station was called a pick-a-pack.
Golly.
So
here's another funny one.
That's going deep down in Mississippi now. Whenever you call it a pick-a-pack.
Well, here's another great one before we go down in the Delta that MJ told me about. I hunt down in Lambert on a farm that I get to hunt on it's a suburb between Marks and Vance on Highway 3. Now, this is one neither one of y'all bet have ever heard. You guy walk into a grocery store out in the country down the Mississippi Delta and go, "How you doing today?" "Doing fine, fine. How's your mom and them?" "Fine, fine. Give me a listener and a cool lickle." Y'all know what a listener and a cool lickle is?
I don't know a cool lickle. No.
All right, a listener is a pig ear sandwich with barbecue sauce on it on white bread, and a cool lickle is they take the pickle juice and they put it and they freeze it and make a popsicle out of it.
Oh my God!
No sir.
No sir. They can have that.
No sir. They can have that. Anything.
Hold on, but I will say this though. You know how you know you're from the South? We specialize in eating food from the gas station. We specialize in it. The best food we eat. You call
is at the gas station.
I call it a potato log. It is the best chicken and food you're gonna eat at the gas station. So till you sit with us, y'all going to get gas. I'm going to get food. Stay out of my business.
Yeah, and look. Let me just say this, about out of time. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And I got one of the other ones about guy hits the home run. Ray Mooring, Pat Cornelius, can't say it enough times. He gone yard or he's gunt. It's just you only in the South. Look, folks, Yancy Porter, catch him Rebel Yell Hotline Monday nights, 6 p.m. Central Sports 56 WHBQ, Super Talk Mississippi. Yancy been covering Ole Miss 27 years. Just absolutely incredible. It's the stories. It's the in-depth coverage. He knows these coaches. He also knows the difference between off the record and on the record. Ben Troupe, ESPN Coastal, does a daily sports radio show, Savannah, Georgia, the pride of Swainsboro, Georgia. Went to high school, though, in Augusta, to the big city. Played at Florida, played in the NFL, Gatorbait Media. Love having both of y'all on here. To Coach Thompson, Frank Duffy, Dan Matthews, all of our guests that we had today. Cannot say thank you enough. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, folks. Go out. We're all blessed. Bless others. Never miss an opportunity to help somebody out. You never know what words can mean. It may save a life. We'll see you tomorrow. We are out of here. God love you.